Your ears do not deceive you. You have just entered the Cryptid Creator Corner brought to you by your friends at Comic Book Yeti. So without further ado, let's get on to the interview.
Y'all, Jimmy, the Chaos Goblin, strikes again. I should have known better than to mention I was working on my DC Universe meets Ravenloft hybrid D&D campaign on social media. My bad. He goes and tags a bunch of comics creators we know, and now I have to get it in gear and whip this campaign into shape so we can start playing. Another friend chimes in, "Are you going to make maps?" It's fair to say it's been a while since I put something together, so I guess, question mark? It was then that I discovered Arkenforge. If you don't know who Arkenforge is, they have everything you need to make your TTRPG more fun and immersive, allowing you to build, play, and export animated maps, including in-person fog of war capability that lets your players interact with maps as the adventure unfolds while you, the DM, get the full picture. Now I'm set to easily build high-res animated maps, saving myself precious time and significantly adding nuance to our campaign. That's a win every day in my book. Check them out at arkenforge.com and use the discount code YETI5 to get $5 off. I'll drop a link in the show notes for you, and big thanks to Arkenforge for partnering with our show. I think I'm going to make Jimmy play a Goblin Warlock just to get even.
Hello and welcome to Comic Book Yeti's Cryptid Creator Corner. I am one of your hosts, Jimmy Gasparo, and I have a returning guest that I am very excited to talk to, especially because their first appearance was way back in December of 2022. I think it was episode number 33 for me personally, and I just recently, the episode that came out today as we record this was over 250 total for the podcast. My 136th episode that I've done. But this is a writer, creator, publisher, just an all around decent individual. And we have a shared love of not only comics, but Rent and Meatloaf that came up on the podcast last time. But please welcome back to the podcast, Travis Gibb. Travis, how you doing?
I am good. First, I know this is not a video, so this is not useful to anybody, but I'm still going to share it. There is an icon that they have for the guests that is just a beautiful piece of art of the Yeti that I wish I had a Yeti project so I could buy it.
Well, I'm glad you like it. But yeah, thanks for coming back on. And right now, as we're recording this, and I'm going to try and get this episode out, fairly quickly because you are right in the midst of the Kickstarter campaign for Cthulhu Invades Fairy Tales. It just recently reached its funding goal, but there's, I think, some really great, stretch goals. And this is the Ringo nominated Cthulhu Invades. I think Cthulhu Invades Wonderland was nominated for a Ringo Award. There's some absolutely fantastic creators in this, and I want to talk all about it. I first wanted to figure out, I don't know if it came up last time, just what was the impetus with Cthulhu meeting. I know one of it is like a something in the public domain. So you've done you've done Oz and Wonderland, Neverland was the last one, and now we're into fairy tales.
Well, Cthulhu for a bit dominated Kickstarter. It really did. So when I first started as a creator, it was just dominating the scene. Anybody who made anything Cthulhu was doing really well. I do think the Cthulhu market, both in comics and in games, have kind of chilled out because there's a lot of that now. But if you go back 5 or 6 years, that wasn't the case. It was hard to find good Cthulhu material. They had a couple of games and a couple of movies, but nothing substantial. So I needed a trade to get to my table as quickly as possible. So I was doing Broke Down and 4 Dead Bodies. I was at issue, I think, 2, working on 3. And I was like, I'm not going to get to the trade because I was putting out a book a year at the time. I wasn't as fast as I am now. Didn't have the team, didn't have the, payroll to do it. So it was taking me longer. So I said, I need a trade. And my wife said, well, what do you think would sell the best? And I said, I think Cthulhu would sell the best, anything Cthulhu, but a lot of people are doing Cthulhu stuff. And as I thought about it, I talked about public domain with my wife and what it is, because I had to explain what Cthulhu was. I had explained why we could use it in public domain. And when that conversation, the trend came of all these other things that are public domain. And I was like, what if we had them invading it? So I literally called everyone I knew who I felt was higher level than me in comics. Like nobody on my side. Like whoever's higher level than me, who is nice at a con, I'm going to ask you to be part of this thing. And the majority of them said yes. And so we made Cthulhu Invades Oz. And at the time, I don't think I realized how important it was and how excited like people really got about it, not just creators, but as fans. Because let's be honest, Jimmy, I know you write comics a little bit. I write comics, a lot. I know you want to write more a lot, but odds of us writing Spider-Man or Batman or any of these are very, very low. And even if we do, because of our age, not to call us out,
yeah, we're old.
We're never going to get Amazing Spider-Man or Batman, right? We will get, Batman Universe 8 pages. I'll get
right.
If I want Spider-Man, I'll get Venomverse. I don't actually get to write Spider-Man, but I can create a new Venom that attacked Harry Osborn, Jamaica. So I realized so many people have that. And when we started creating these public domains, this is the chance for you guys to create something that you love and that will outlast you, much like a Spider-Man and a Batman. So it really became more and more important. And I also take it very seriously. Like I make sure that everything's in continuity. If you read the books, this is in continuity. It was a little more tricky for Oz because there's like 25 books, but but the rest, making sure it had a part. Here's where it starts. Here's what we're using and what we're using. What's in continuity before and after. It's unique.
But yeah, to talk a little bit about some of the the ones that came before this, especially with Cthulhu Invades Neverland. I really liked what connected all of the stories together, because you have a bunch of different creators and artists, to do this. But for like Neverland, you had, Invasion Day 77, Invasion Day like 106, and like a little update as it went. And it not just, in continuity, but it really felt connected. Like it really felt like you were getting like a complete graphic novel and just a bunch of disjointed, oh, here's Cthulhu and Tiger Lily. Like it really felt, it helped to really make it feel all connected, which I think has to help, readers when they're getting something like this.
That was 100% my intention. So Oz, Wonderland, and Neverland, not only are they all in continuity, there is a through line throughout each of them. So there's a beginning, middle, and end to your story. You may not like the beginning, middle, and end, but there's a beginning, middle, and end. They do some bad things to some of these characters. And we actually intend to make a final that wraps all that stuff up, ties those books together. And even Fairy Tales is in continuity to Oz. So in the end of Oz, spoiler for those who haven't read it, came out in 2020, so you've had 4 years.
Yeah, you're safe, I think. But.
Right. Dorothy gives him a bunch of books. And that's where he finds Neverland, and he's reading it. So Fairy Tales in continuity too, but we're not doing the same structure because they're all like mini universes, right? I know Shrek has mixed them all together, but the average book doesn't mix them together. So we do that. So yeah, creating that. And one of the things that I'm good at, I come from a LARP background. Are you a LARPer? Do you know about LARP, Jimmy?
I know what it. I don't do it. I know what it stands for. Right. Live action role play, right?
Yeah. So I used to run Vampire and Werewolf, which is a big thing. But a lot of people can say they ran those things. I ran them for like 300 to 400.
Oh my God.
I ran big games.
Now, see, that seems unmanageable.
It is unmanageable. You have assistants and stuff like that. But what that does and what that made me be able to do is they all have their stories, and I'm really good at connecting their stories. So it's a unique skill that I have as a writer that I don't think an average writer has, because I think you got to be put in those scenarios. Because when you play those role playing, you make a character, you write a background about your character, and you have all these things. And my job is to make my big story tie in with all their little stories. So adding little Easter eggs and making the experience more fun for the players. So it's the same thing I did with all the creators here, making their story connect to a bigger whole. And one of the biggest tricks to any of these things. I'll tell you the trick I do it. Those days, and why we put those days in, because it helps us transition from the art. If the art is too drastic, the other thing it does, it allows, if things don't quite flow, time has happened and you're willing to forgive it. It's a trick with movies too. Why they do flash forwards or flashbacks. You're willing to forgive some things because they're like, oh, well, I missed some time. Something must have happened that I missed. And your brain puts it in there and you can go on. So it's a neat little writing trick I learned.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that makes a lot of sense hearing it. Very, it's smart to do it that way. And yeah, I can't wait to see how the first volume of Cthulhu Invades Fairy Tales comes out. I wanted to go through the list. I mean,
Yeah,
some of the creators in this, and I just shot over to the Kickstarter page. But
yeah,
in addition to yourself, Clay Adams, Greg Alisi, Chuck Satterley, Carl Moline,
yeah.
Dan Schmidt, David Byrne, Jerome Gagnon, you're the famous
Famous
Orange
story,
Cone
yes.
Productions letterer,
Yeah,
Ben Humaniak, Devin R. Scott, David Westhoff, Heather Gibb,
yeah,
Stoney Williams. I mean, yeah, Kurt Belcher. I
yeah.
recognize a ton of names on this. Uh, especially being in indie comic circles. So it's very exciting to see everybody involved and what they're going to do with all the different fairy tales and how Cthulhu is going to invade. I mean, I think this series is really great. And you got some really cool covers too. I know Peter Collins is doing one, and there's um I don't know if I'm saying the first name right. Jack Dion. That cover is
Yeah,
gorgeous.
I mean, all the covers I think are out of the park, right? You got
Yeah.
Carmeline on cover A, who's former Buffy, Frey creator, did a lot of stuff with Avengers Arena. Then you got Peter Collins, and Peter, like, this is a tough cover. I said, hey, I don't think when I asked him to do it that I really put it in my head what I was asking him to do. I was just like, break your mirror and just put like the 20 stories that are in there, just roll them like that.
Yeah. Yeah. See if you can fit 20 stories in a broken mirror with
They're
Cthulhu.
coming
Yeah.
out and make it look good too, please. Don't yeah. Yeah, I had to, like, when he was done, I was like, there's no way I can pay you what I said I would pay you because that would be very unfair to you. We need to work something out. I'll take care of you because wow, because he just blew it away. And then we signed for cover A and cover C. We love both of them so much. We did a 3-book contract for both of them. So you're going to see their covers. Kind of what we did for the other Cthulhu's, because cover A was Etienne and cover C was Kyle Willis. Same thing, just different.
And yeah, so when I guess when the campaign like all wraps up, um like how long does it take in terms of your production time to actually put something like this together? I'm kind of curious, like when did you start putting the call out to the creators to kind of get something going to the point where you think, your estimate as to when
Yeah.
it'll get in people's hands?
So the estimate on the campaign is June. I am trying really hard to get it for Christmas, to get it to everyone for Christmas. That's the goal.
Okay.
All stories, there's only 3 stories that aren't complete art wise. So that, but all of them are supposed to be done before the end of the campaign. So I always, my rule of thumb, the way I do this, so I do a couple of neat tricks. And there's some of my anthology tricks here. So one of the things I
Yeah.
do is
And just to jump in here, if anyone listening, when you hear some of Travis's tricks that I think he's going to tell you about, but if you do not follow his newsletter, I will put a link to Travis's newsletter, the Orange Cone Production newsletter, because he just there are very few creators out there who are doing newsletters like Travis does, where I feel like he gives you a really inside baseball look of comics and also is very personal about what's going on with comic production. I mean, my 2 favorite newsletters, I think, are like Cullen Bunn and Travis Gibb are like
thank you.
one
Yeah.
one and two on the list of like the 20 to 25 newsletters I get. But sorry, I had to
No,
give
you're
a
good.
plug for your newsletter.
I appreciate it. And I'm doing one of those emo ones that people really love. That's my next one. So later on this week. So people love it when I get personal, when they find the dramas of my life. They seem to really like that. So one of the tricks for anthologies is the biggest trick is and this sucks for creators, and I'm going to tell you a reality. You can't get paid with what you're worth. And I'm sorry. Like, I know it seems like a lot. Like, we're at 24K right now. That's not a lot of money when you factor in the amount of pages, what that would cost production wise if I was paying everyone. An average comic book costs about $220 a page. Like, I can't pay that. If I paid that, with 20 creators at 160 pages, I'm not good at math. Well, what's that math? Here, I got a calculator here. I got so 160 times 200.
32,000.
So that'd be 30. That's just for production. That's not counting printing, shipping, covers, any of the other shit. So you can't do that. So that's the first thing. So what you do is entice them another one. One is make a preview book. So we always do a preview book. So we do the first 5 people who were done get a preview book. That gets people excited and gets things going on. Build a community around the anthology so they're excited to be part of it. So they're sharing art. Because if someone's sharing art and your team hasn't started, you're going to harass your team to get it started. So many anthologies that I'm part of, there's no communication. And then I see a book like 7 to 8 months later. And yeah, it's good. But I also see the emails, hey, such and such dropped out. Hey, such and such dropped out, because no one's excited about it, and being part of it. Yeah. And then the other thing is I try to do incentives and do it as we're going to get people excited, to get people part of it, and know that it's something bigger. So I think that those are the things that I do that kind of do it. There's a whole bunch, and I just did a anthologies newsletter, but those are the big ones that I think really help put these things together. In fact, we're already working on 2, as you know, Jimmy. Yes. We're already started volume 2, and it's going to be the same thing. Basically, the way it's going to work, I've already submitted it. I know people right now are racing. I've seen art for 2 because they got a head start because they got their scripts in a little bit earlier. So they're already working on art because they want to be in that preview book. And then when I have 5 of those, 5 done, I'm going to greenlight volume 3 and keep going. So these things, it's how we keep it going, how we keep it fast. And going back to my lateness that I talked about, the people who are late, and this is also inside baseball, it's me and my wife. It's because we're doing all the other things. We just never got around to writing our script. It's me and my wife who are late. So our team is doing it. I mean, we're allowed to be late because we make the book. But everyone who had the schedule, they mostly are part of it. And they're excited to be part of it.
All right, let's take a quick break. Hey comics fam, indie comic book publisher Band of Bars just got a level up and announced it is now a cooperative. This heralds a new era for them, including a partnership with Dauntless Stories. And they added several new members to the ownership group. Marcus Jimenez is now Chief Operating Officer, Brent Fisher takes on the role of Chief Diversity Officer, and Joey Galvez is introduced as Head of Kickstarter Ops and Social Media Manager, which is sure to increase their capabilities overall as a publisher. And it further promotes their mission statement of advancing representation, inclusion, and diversity in the media. They also established a new board of directors to help chart the new path of their journey. With new projects in the works like Alas Goodbye dropping in June, Unbroken soon launching on Kickstarter, and Pawn coming up with Dauntless, stay tuned to this space for more exciting news from the growing Bards family. Let's get back to the show.
One of the other things, and having been, a part of some of the stuff that you've done before, you gave me an opportunity to do a story for the Christmas in July. And yes, you just mentioned me and artist Joe Kovas is working on a story for volume 2. But
announce it. What do you got? Tell them who you got, Jimmy.
We're doing a fairy tale, The Lady or the Tiger, which I was not familiar with it until like just a few months ago. And it wasn't a fairy tale that I was familiar with, but I kind of became like obsessed with it because if you're not familiar with The Lady or the Tiger, like a real quick breakdown of the fairy tale is that a princess in a kingdom falls in love. Her dad, the king, doesn't like that. And so everyone in that kingdom who's accused of a crime goes to an arena and they get to pick a door. And behind one is a lady. They get married on the spot. Behind the other is a tiger. And in the original fairy tale, it's left undecided. Like the princess points to a door and that's it. It ends and it's left up to you. Like, did she pick did she pick the door to see him married to somebody else? Did she pick the tiger? And I just love that, and that ending where it kind of leaves things up in the air. So Joe and I are working on that story, and I am excited to be a part of it. And just to go right into what I was going to say is that I'm part of the excitement and talking about getting creators like involved is you have a Facebook group for all the creators. You're active on Facebook. You're, active on other social media like Twitter. You have an Orange Cone Productions Discord. You have a
Right.
comic creator hangout Discord. And like I cannot like keep up, but if I ever have like a couple minutes to spare, you can go on and see people looking for help or advice with different comic creation uh, projects. Everybody is like very helpful in terms of giving advice, or if you need a colorist or a letterer, everything from talking about someone being upset that the acolyte got isn't getting a season
Right.
two, so someone being excited that it's not getting a season
Right.
two. You know, it's just great that there's so many opportunities for people like not only like all over the US, probably all over, the world, anyone that has access to it. It really does fuel that, excitement. There's like a self-promotion channel for people to promote their work, promote their Kickstarter. You really do give comic creators a lot of opportunities, not just to be involved in products, but projects, but just to connect. So, on that level, from the comic book community, thank you because I think it's wonderful.
Thank you. Yeah, I love it. I love our community over there. It's a lot of fun. I actually don't get enough time to spend. In fact, they started calling me the grumpy dad recently because I only come to yell about things. Just because I'm too busy promoting other things. And I have a fake beef with Frank Martin. I don't really have a beef with Frank Martin. I actually like him a lot. But in the Discord, I call him out because he didn't like Ultimate Spider-Man. And I feel that that is a hangable offense. So I call him out for not liking Jonathan Hickman because it's an absolute travesty that you would not think Jonathan Hickman is anything but a genius. So I don't understand.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, everyone has their line in the stand, with certain things, and you gotta stick up for those things. But the thing I like about it is it is all kind of like good natured. I haven't really when I checked in and I'll go through some of the channels. I've never really seen anybody being, like aggressive or
No, we
your thing is crap or everyone throws out their opinions. Frank's got a lot. I don't know Frank, but I've seen his name pop up in Discord. Frank's got a lot of opinions. I don't agree with many of them, but he's usually pretty good about it.
yeah, the only time we actually police it. What's really cool is we don't have aggressive mods. We let conversations happen. So we let them happen because one of the positive things about our group is not only me, but we have people like Pat Shan and Charlie Stickney and Dave, people who've done a lot in this industry
Yeah.
will pop in and give advice. And I think because of that, I think people are very respectful because they don't want to lose the opportunity or get close to these creators who are going to actually help them and give them real advice and real help on their projects, not just blowing smoke, like real help. So I think that's the only time we've ever came close is the death of Ed Piskor, and I just think there was a lot to that. But even that, it was still respectful. It just that was the only time we've ever had to come in and go, "Hey, we need to heal a little bit,"
Yeah.
because we're all very, very stuff. And I think there was a lot of hurt. There was a lot of shock to a lot of us. So
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. That was terrible.
yeah.
I didn't know. I mean, I didn't know Ed, but yeah, I mean, not something we have to get into now. But yeah, that was a terrible situation.
Yeah, it's a tough thing, and you've seen it verbally throughout. They did an event for him at San Diego Comic Con, so his impact in comics is not being forgotten, and it's sad that he didn't see that he could get through it. That he could see through it or find a way through whatever the situation is. I think everybody's redeemable. I mean, maybe just because I'm a Christian, like I think everybody's redeemable. You just got to do the work, right? Regardless of what happens. And I'm not even saying how I feel about the best dressed, but I feel regardless of what happens or whatever people say about you, there's a path to redemption. You got to work through it. It's going to be hard, but you got to work through it. You know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, no, I definitely, I definitely agree with that with that aspect of it. I think sometimes when something terrible happens, and if someone's accused of something or there's some type of allegation, if folks maybe it's more of a social media thing, but I think it happens in the real world too. If you say like, "Oh, that's terrible," somebody thinks like you condone whatever it is
Right.
they like may or may not done, and it's like I can hold both thoughts in my head. I can
Right.
think that, oh, hey, I want to protect the comic community from anybody that is a predator, if that's the case, and you know, I'm not calling Ed that. I'm just saying whatever the allegation is. But also, if somebody commits suicide,
Right.
that's terrible. And somebody was clearly going through that's not a rational decision, really. Someone's going through a mental health crisis, and that's an awful thing. And I can hold space for both of those thoughts. I'm also not someone that feels the need on social media to make my like opinion known or have the last word or get involved in a situation where I don't know, all the facts. And that's probably just because I'm a lawyer and that's,
Right.
I don't I don't do that. My client comes in and they're like, "Hey, this is my situation." I'm not, running off and saying this, that, and the other thing. I want all the facts. I want all the details. I want to come up with a plan. And because that's what I do in my day-to-day work, whenever something happens on, social media, I don't need to like weigh in or make people know my opinion. And, um, maybe that'll bite me in the ass one day if somebody's like, "I can't believe you didn't stick up for this or didn't say this or that." But it's just not my
I mean, I think
nature.
for social commentary, it'll bite you in the ass, but not in real life. Like, I think it'll be all right. Like,
Yeah.
and remember, I wrote, going back to my Discord, I wrote a big post about it, and how I felt like,
Yeah.
on both sides, because I do feel you should always trust victim, but I also believe that this guy loved comics, to a point that I don't even love comics. And there's very few people who I can look at and go, "You love comics more than me." That is odd because I really believe in my heart of heart, I love comics so much. Like seeing someone who just loves it so much and wants the history and just so excited about the history, and it's just fascinating to me. People in general fascinate me, but someone who loves something that I love, that I can generally say, "You love this more than me."
Yeah.
It's just
No,
wild.
no, that is remarkable. Yeah, and also like Twitter and other forms of social media aren't great with nuance, you
Right,
know?
right, right.
Like that's the other problem. Like, when you're dealing with those types of issues, it's not or those things come up in the community, it's not great to try and like hash something out. Everyone just wants to say a thing and move on, or wants a here's the answer, here's this. And somebody have very definite opinions about things. And
Yeah.
you know, but um yeah, I mean I read everything you wrote about that. And I mean you've been involved though in a couple of it seems uh Twitter beefs, I guess is what
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
called. Like
let's go.
you get a little fired up sometimes. You get a little bit.
I do. So as I've shared, I come from a very trashy household. So I got sometimes it comes out. Sometimes I forget. I think comics are an art. An art is an expression of somebody. And at least the comics that I wrote are expression of my soul. I'm not writing power fantasies very often, right? Like you've read a lot of my work. I don't write real power fantasies. I'm not writing, I wish I was super strong. Like I don't,
Yeah.
not normally what I write. I write broken people trying to figure it out.
Yeah, and
Because
even like when you get close, like I mean, if anyone hasn't read Granite State Punk, I mean,
I
that's
don't
got a
have,
little bit.
yeah, I don't have that. So when I see something of injustice or someone has done me wrong, I'm very quick to call it out. And maybe I shouldn't all the time. I admit maybe I shouldn't, but I'm not afraid to call it out. And when I do call it out, I never I'm quick to admit when I'm wrong. So I'm quick to admit like if I do something like wrong, but I'm also I'm gonna call somebody out. I'm not gonna be afraid of the internet. Like I'm not gonna be afraid. I'm not worried that DC or Marvel may not want me for something of that nature. Stuff. And there's tons of times I get screwed over. Anybody's done any amount of publishing, you guys have seen what people do. Imagine the stories we're not sharing. Like, of course, there's things that I don't. But when someone makes it too personal, like I'm gonna call out. But you know what? Most of my beefs, I get along with them. One of the I won't go into detail the guy, but there was a guy who literally like put evidence that I was Comicsgate and like all this stuff. And I am definitely not Comicsgate. Anybody who knows me knows about Comicsgate. And I called him out. But a year later, it was all stemmed from a conversation that I had with this gentleman where I said he was doing behavior that I said was Comicsgate light. And he felt that that was a threat to his career. Like he was an up and coming. And he thought my saying that because of my platform of where I was compared to where he was could be a threat. So he felt threatened. And when he saw a time when he could attack, he attacked back. So it's all a cycle of people who've been hurt trying to hurt other people. Like, right, that it's all just hurt people hurt people, damaged people who hurt different people. So yeah, I'm not afraid to go out and do that stuff. And I think it happens because we love this medium. So we're gonna go to war if we need to because it's art. Like you're not saying when you come at me or come at one of my books, you're saying that my heart's not right or like my soul, because I put my heart and soul in it, right? It's way more personal when it comes to this stuff.
Right.
So
yeah, I mean, I mean, we're not talking about like constructive criticism type of thing. So,
right. Yeah,
like really comes that you've poured all your time and effort into something. I have a tough time, criticizing things like that just people put out there. I tend to go, I'd rather not say anything because like even like a bad movie, a bad comic, like somebody generally,
right.
spent a lot of time on it. And when, you get dismissive folks who are just like, oh, that's crap, bullshit. And you're just like, man, come on. But when you do see it sometimes and it's, I mean, I get it. In terms of it being, feeling personal, but,
I want to say this because I just came to this realization the other day, and it's part of my post that I'm going to do tomorrow. But one of the things that people don't realize about comics, we're one of the few platforms in the world, in my opinion, where we can say whatever we want in the way we want to say it. So if I have something that's a little controversial, and I don't, but let's say I did for argument's sake, if I wanted to make that movie, I'm going to have to tone that down to get the money to make that movie, to make the budget that I want to make. I'm going to have to take some concessions to meet in the middle to get the massive amount of audience. In comics, it's okay to have a small niche audience for a thing. Myself, I made a book about a New Hampshire punk. Like you can't get any more niche than, obviously it resonated with more people than that, but you can niche it down. And I think the ones that have found success are the ones who niche it down. And then eventually like, oh, I like this. And then more people like, oh, that niche really speaks to me. And they just gravitate to that and do it. Great example is like Bitch Planet, right? From Kelly. Like that resonated with female comic readers who were like, I want to read comics. I don't understand why they reboot all the time and all these things. I want to be a part of this thing, but I can't. And being angry about it and like it being stressed. Any of the early like Bendis stuff, it was hey, I want to really, get into this crime gritty Quentin Tarantino strong dialogue, Quentin Tarantino, Kevin Smith. I think we can do that in comics. And it found a niche and it worked. I mean, it's a whole graph. It's like 3 issues before Ultimate Spider-Man becomes Spider-Man. That's wild to me.
Yeah.
And that Marvel said, yeah, man, we trust you. He did a black and white book called Jinx and Goldfish. Like, why would you trust him to do this? But he did. It's wild. So that's what I love about the medium is we're allowed to do these niches and really speak to an audience. And I think, and this is why I get frustrated, especially when you look at the Kickstarter audience and even look at like direct market. We're trying to be more encompassing, but less encompassing at the same time, right? We're making books that are less passionate about and more what covers are going to sell, instead of like things that really speak to people, We don't have an ex machina right now. We don't have a, Why the Last Man? Why the Last Man? The reason why the movie didn't make is that book does not translate to today's society when we have different opinions about gender and things like that. But back in that day, that spoke to that issue coming, like that it's coming around the belt. He didn't have the terms to make it cool. In fact, I would love him to like rewrite the whole thing with today's, knowledge of that stuff. It'd be so fascinating, like just tweaking and the stuff, I don't know. I want to rant there. We're far off topic, I think, Jimmy, or maybe we're on. I don't know.
It's fine. I mean, whatever topic, we'll make our way back. But no, so yeah, let's make our way back to Cthulhu Invades Fairy Tales and Orange Cone Productions. So let's chat about some of the other stuff. I want to go through the list.
I do want to say one thing about Fairy Tales, just because it's very important to the Yeti. Have you heard about my Rumpelstiltskin story yet?
No.
So Rumpelstiltskin, as we know, is a story about the name, right? Figuring out Rumpelstiltskin's name. If you say his name, he'll no longer harass you or you'll get free gold. I don't remember. I do remember, but you get what I'm saying. Well, in this story, H.P. Lovecraft wrote one of the first fiction stories about the Yeti. It's basically the Yeti. Yes, absolutely. It's called The Howl of Wind, I believe is the name of the book. Don't quote me 100% on that. Okay. He wrote it, but he didn't name the Yeti. The Yeti was named 4 or 5 books later, past his death. Those are not public domain. So I have this really unique story using an H.P. Lovecraft created character. It's basically a Yeti for the stuff, but not being able to name it because of the public domain thing. And I think that that's very clever. And only people listen to this podcast and any other podcast I do is ever going to know that I did that. But I feel very clever in doing so. And I need to share it as often as I can. Now we can talk about other Orange Cones.
No, I think that's great. I love it. Oh, now I can't wait. I'm even more excited. Yeah, so let's talk about some of the Orange Cone stuff. So anyone who, didn't listen to the last episode or for some reason isn't, might not be familiar. Some of the Orange Cone stuff. You have Broke Down and 4 Dead Bodies, and I think you're working on a Broke Down in Cannon City, right?
Yeah. So it already funded. We have a full lettering done of it, and it's waiting on my wife's desk to fully edit, get it printed and shipped, and that's it, Jimmy. We're actually done with Broke Down. We're going to take a break from it.
Okay. And so with all your Granite State stuff, you had Granite State Punk, you had Granite State. I want to try not to look and remember Breaking Edge, Granite State, The Coven, and Granite State. The most recent one was like Only Posers Fall in Love.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So art is all done for everything. It hasn't fully been lettered. Again, that'll go to my wife, but we're trying to wrap that up. The Coven coming out in Diamond in November. So it'll be in Diamond the next previews you get. So probably this week, actually, probably this Wednesday is when previews will come. Okay. You'll be able to order the Coven. If you want the Scout version, it'll be slightly different. They make us make some edits. But yeah, you'll get the Coven in that. And then for those who back the Kickstarter for Only Posers Fall in Love, you'll get that probably October.
Okay.
Probably we just we just confirmed that he's going to start production of the next one in October. And I'm hoping to launch it around the end of the year. It's called The Pilgrim is the next one. And it's we're going to study how New Hampshire was affected by the Mayflower, what happened. If anybody who's lived in New England or comes from New England, like the Mayflower is our thing. Like everyone in school has to study it. You have to go to the experience.
Right.
So every day, Plymouth Plantation has a 24/7. They do Thanksgiving every day. There's actors and all that stuff. So it's a big thing. So we're going to talk about that. And that's going to wrap up the first volume. So that's going to be like the trade of it before we start to volume 2. But yeah, it's going to wrap that up. And I'm super excited. You guys are not prepared for what you guys are going to see in that and what I plan on doing to wrap that up. And then we're going to start what I call season 2 of Granite State Punk next year.
Oh, that's fantastic. I mean, I really like the first Granite State Punk. I thought Breaking Edge um was really good as well. I liked the I just like the arc of the character. I like how it, you know, his personality, everything leads to a worse consequence. He's kind of just taking it on the chin. I think the opening of like Breaking Edge, he gets like punched by his uncle. So sometimes literally taking it on the chin. Um, yeah, I really like it. I think it's is Patrick is the artist, right?
Dr. Brumeyer, yeah.
Brumeyer. Yeah.
He tells it. I think I shared it in the last interview, but it's the first book that I ever got to pick. Like, this is the guy who I want to draw. And no offense to Patrick, and I don't care if he hears this, he draws my book better than any other. Like, there is something about punk rock that really resonates. He tends to draw a lot of dark fantasy, which is great for him, but got to stick with punk rock, man. Like, the way he does.
Yeah, I just feel like his art style. It has a very like almost underground indie comic kind of like look to it, you know? Like the police were at the door and you were trying to finish up this sketch before
Right.
they broke it down with a battering ram, and it just works so well for the story you're telling. I love it. I think it's great. So I can't wait to see the rest of it and see how it gets all wrapped up.
Yeah, I feel he's got a like a mix between Steve Niles,
Okay.
uh, like a Steven Niles. He's got like the strokes, the big dark strokes of Steven Niles, but his big influence is my God, I'm struggling. Ramos, Mata Ramos,
Oh, okay.
which is why like he had which you can't tell because he doesn't draw like him, but his
Yeah.
face expressions are big and the faces are kind of big and the hand like the bodies look a little bigger than they should. Like, yeah,
Yeah, I think it's I mean, I think it's great. And I think for a book that um his facial expressions are like very good, very, necessarily, exaggerated.
yeah,
So, yeah, that's a really fun series and but very deep as well. I just feel like it hits a lot of notes and yeah, I'm not a punk rock person, but I think it's super entertaining. I kind of connect with the character in certain ways and I just really enjoy reading it. I think I get something different out of every time I go through it again. I mean, there is something about a guy who seems like just the worst at times, but
right.
you're kind of rooting for him a little bit, you know?
He, he's that guy that we all have. He's an asshole,
Yeah.
but he's your asshole, right?
Yeah.
Like
Exactly.
he's he can be a dick to people and like, but you're like, but he's good to me. Like, so you give him excuses. I
Yeah.
think everyone has one in their friends group. They're like, he's a prick. Like, I totally get why you don't like him. Like
Yeah.
when relationships don't work, you're like, of course they don't work. He's an asshole. But
Right.
but you love him and you want him around. He always gets invites. Like, there's something about that guy, and that's the guy who I write.
Yeah, yeah, that there absolutely is. And I really yeah, I feel like that character is someone that, people understand
Yeah,
universally. And that's a
yeah,
good way to put it. Someone who you're like, "Oh no, I what he's done totally indefensible.
yeah.
Your honor, I'm sorry." But you're just like, "Yeah, no, he's coming over Sunday.
Yeah,
we're going to
he's
watch
my
we're going to
friend.
watch the game."
I know he robbed you, but he's never robbed me. He would never do that to me.
Yeah. We yeah, we make excuses.
Right.
I get it. And yeah, and so I think you're doing a hospice. If folks don't know about, was this really cool project that you did with different stories being told by multiple creators,
Yeah.
similar theme. And is there going to be like a trade of all of those collected
So yeah,
now?
yeah, we're gonna collect that into a trade. I believe that is our hopefully next month. So hopefully in September we're gonna launch that
Okay.
Kickstarter and get that going on. You guys have waited for it too long. A lot of people have wanted it because they missed one or two of the issues because they all came out at the same time. It's a lot of money to spend. If you bought all of them, I think our minimum was $20, so you had to spend $100. I mean, that's a lot. It's a lot for
Yeah.
your card collection, right?
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. Certainly.
I mean, that's a week for me. But for most people, like I found that is not the case.
Yeah, that can be a lot when you're
So,
putting them
so we're
together.
going to get that trade, get a nice little trade on it. We've got a couple of covers for it, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So that should be
Awesome.
the next thing on the pike, and I think we can get that directly out to people because everything's been individually edited. We may need to go through it a couple of times just to make sure that it's up to Orange Cone standards. Is my logo on the side, but nothing major.
Nice. And then one of the other things I'm excited about, because I really like the holiday spirits anthologies, which you've done, I think, 3 so far, but you're doing a monster special. Is that right?
We are. So it is up in the air right now. I'll be honest. This is part of the negative comics, and I don't mind sharing it. We had four big names. All 4 of them had to drop because of big opportunities.
Okay.
So we have to replace the 4 big, but it's still, if everything works out and everything's good, I do plan on launching it in December.
Nice.
But stuff, and would be monsters, and unlike our normal ones, it's going to be just what do monsters do during the holiday? What does Frankenstein do for Christmas? What is?
Yeah. See, I love that concept of
Right.
stuff. This isn't exactly like a parallel, but one of my favorite, I don't know if it's a genre of things. Talk about a niche. I really like supernatural stuff, but when there's like a level of like bureaucracy,
Yeah.
so like whenever my brother and I watch Supernatural like every episode, but whenever Supernatural like went to hell or heaven and it was like, you know, there was a book and there was like an administrator.
Right.
Whenever they take something like that, um, I often think of like Douglas Adams with like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, like science fiction too. You have like this other planet, and they're trying to do get somebody out of jail, and it's just like like needlessly complicated. I like those types of things, and that the holiday spirits monster special kind of gives me like a little bit of that flavor when you're talking about monsters and terrifying, and then you're adding in this like almost homey comforting element of the holidays, like, because do they scare, do they terrorize, do they just do they make eggnog, like what do they do?
Yeah, I got the idea because someone came up to me and they bought holiday spirits and they had a Frankenstein shirt, and Frankenstein was just looking out the window. That was the whole shirt. And I was just like, imagine him in a Christmas sweater, the coffee, like
Yeah.
out at the snow. I was like, I want to make that book. That book sounds fun.
Yeah.
And it gets all the things that we've been doing Cthulhu over
Right.
on the holiday spirit side, and see what we could do to do that. And then the next year as well, just to give you a little bit, we're going to do the July. So on 2025 schedule is our Christmas in July trade. So we're going to combine your story and all the other stories into one
Nice.
trade that we've done for the 3 volume, adding a 4th volume that kind of ties it all together to get a nice trade.
Right. Awesome. I love it. Well, I hope it happens. I hope the your the holiday spirits monster idea happens. I really love it. Yeah, it's also one of those things like that's fun, like instantly, when you think about it, like there's like an idea pops into your head when you hear something like that. You're just like, oh, monsters at the holidays, and it's just like so many different ways it can go. Um, yeah, and then I guess the only other thing is you were working on a project that I've heard about. I think on the Discord and as well in your newsletters, a graphic novel for the Federalist.
Yeah. We've been working on the Federals for a little bit. We've got a few pages done. We got about 15 pages done of it. Rolling, and we're hoping to launch that before the end of the year. Our schedule's getting tight. There's a lot of stuff at that end of the year, so I'm not sure if that's possible. We want to make sure we catch up a little bit to get everything stuff, but I really want to get the Federalists out. This year has been a rough year for Orange Cone, not like financially or anything. We looked at our schedule, we looked at what we've been producing, and we realized that we need to clear some stuff off of the table so we can put out a lot of new stuff. Because we want to have a lot of new things and bring new things to the platform. To do that, we got to wrap up Voodoo Nation. So Voodoo Nation's got to go. That's one of our books. We got to get that off the shelf. Broke down. We still had those stories were done. So we had to get that off the shelf. Even Granite State Punk, it's not leaving the shelf, but we want to give it a trade, have it kind of on the shelf, so we can put it aside a little bit, so we can do some new IPs. And
Right.
one of them is the Federalist. So Federalist is going to be a small 65 to 70 page graphic novel, and it's going to be a hardback one shot, just out. And it's about there's a thing in the Federalist Papers. If you don't know what those are, there's a series of documents that Madison and Hamilton and a couple other guys that were writing to kind of get everyone excited about having a universal banking system. So, but in that, just like today, like if you listen to Trump, or it's all about the Republicans' fault or the Democrats' fault. They always blamed it. Well, back then they weren't fighting amongst each other yet. The British. So the British did this to you. The British did this to you. And I had this idea of old, grizzled, PTSD general war hero writing it, who fought in the Revolutionary War, who thinks these are coded messages from his generals because they are written from his generals. Just so you know, the Federalist Papers weren't labeled as those guys. We didn't know that they wrote it till later. So he feels that these are.
Yeah. It was what? James Madison, Alexander Hamilton,
Montgomery, and one other person wrote one more.
Right, but they kind of wrote them, in secret. They were to help get the country behind the
banking system,
Constitution, and the Bill of Rights, and all that.
So if you read them straight through, it sounds like there could be British coming to kill you all the time, and that's what they're trying to imply. So you sign this document and get excited about the Constitution. This guy feels the British are coming, so he starts hunting British people who he thinks are spies, and sometimes he gets it right, sometimes he gets it wrong. How right is he? How wrong is he? You'll have to read the book to find out.
All right. Nothing like a late 1700s conspiracy theorist thriller.
Punisher. He's a Revolutionary War Punisher, is what I call him.
Okay. There you go. All right.
But unlike the Punisher, he doesn't know if he's quite doing it right. And I'll promise you, he's doing it right sometimes and wrong the other time.
Okay. Yeah, well, that sounds wild. So I can't wait till that stuff comes out. I'm really impressed with like your, not just we talk about your openness, your outlook, the things you've done for the indie comics community. But I really think you have to be one of the more, productive individuals that are really trying to, that are making this happen, doing all these things with Orange Cone. And I just think the opportunities that you give to people, and the, your sense of fun, your writing, and, taking some of the things that you've gone through in your life to put into your work. Like you've done a lot of fun stuff, but you've done a lot of stuff that's also deeply personal. When you look at some of the comics you've written, like, Granite State Punk, and then, read your newsletters, like the one you wrote this past year, I think it was for Father's Day. I'm such a fan of not only you as a writer, but like you as a person that I've come to know, through your comics and interacting with you online. This has just been a real joy for me to get to, talk to you, and to even be a part in any of these projects is just, has been wonderful.
Well, thank you. I mean, it's for me, growing up, I came from a drug and alcohol family, and it was best to not be seen. Right. It's best to just sit in the back room, because then you don't get involved in the nonsense, and you don't get hit, or you don't stuff. But one of the things that I don't talk about a lot, that I was really blessed with my extended family being more normal, more traditional. Right. So I knew that something was amiss, and not everybody has that opportunity. Right. A lot of people come from, and I'm not trying to insult people in trailer park. I grew up in trailer park trash on mom's side, trailer park trash on dad's side. So that's all they know. Right. That's all they know of generation and generation. I didn't have that. I was very lucky. But as I grew up, I needed to survive. And the way I survived was my comedy and getting along with people and being passionate about people and comic books. Comic books taught me right and wrong and how to do these things. I share about that a lot. But I've always had this gift that I can connect with people, and I hate it. I hate this gift. I love this gift. Because if I care about you and I really get to connect with you, it's the best thing in the world. But sometimes I connect with people who I don't. And I'll go away and they'll message me on Facebook and say, remember when you did this for me? And they'll tell me this thing I did for them that I don't remember. Because I'm so used to connecting on this emotional level. And I realize that I really need to put it in writing so I don't hurt people. Because it really hurts people when they're like, oh, you connected with me and I don't remember it. And sometimes I lie and pretend I do. And sometimes I don't and be like, I'm sorry, I don't remember that. And of course, the people who are actively in my life, they all remember it, know it. But it's such a coping mechanism is like, what can I do so you see value in me? And I know it's like a brokenness in me, but it's also an extreme gift. So it's trying to figure out how to do that. It's because I can see you guys need a community. I'm really good at talking to people. Let me get you into a community. Let me help you show you're part of more thing. Let me get you some opportunities so you can grow and do your thing because I want you to grow because I don't see you as competition because I want to do this. And we talked about earlier how much I love comics. It's no value. Like I love comics to a point that I know a lot of people don't, and it's okay. You don't need to love it as much as me. But I also want to say something to the world. So everything I write has something extra to it. Voodoo Nations is about my wife. I was drinking a lot because my mom died and I didn't know who I was. And my wife was just sticking by me. She hadn't married me, but I know I drastically changed from one person to a different person. And I could never go back to that person because I don't know who that person is. And I think everybody who goes through death does this. I did a little bit more to the extreme and just having a wife. So that's what that story's about, is about a woman who sees this man change and deciding to still love them through. What does that look like? How does that do? And I literally have to write a fictional version of why that happened because it doesn't make sense to me in real life. Greatest St. Punk is my brokenness, really showing my page, showing brokenness, but also showing the how lovable broken people are, right? I say I come from a drug and alcohol family. There's so many people in those communities who do drugs and do horrible things, but I love them for so many reasons. And they're so good at this thing or the stuff with that asshole. And I want to bring that to light, of like, these things matter. And these things matter in our real life. My wife does a child welfare and I do a lot of community help. And because we actively care about people and communities and trying to make the world better. And I try to do it in my craft,
Yeah. I think it comes through.
Thank you.
I really do. Well, I think that's a kind of a perfect spot to end this conversation on, Travis. But I really appreciate you coming on. I'm glad to see that as we're recording this, Cthulhu Invades Fairy Tales is funded.
Yeah.
And I'll put links to everything in the show notes. And listeners, check it out. You're not going to be disappointed. The other ones I've read, Cthulhu Invades, Wonderland. I don't know if I read Oz. I read Wonderland and Neverland. They're fantastic. And really, any of these projects, in particular, Granite State Punk, though, I just a special shout out for because
it is my most personal.
Amazing.
I feel it's my best. Like I know you shouldn't have a favorite, but I do feel.
I think it's really great. I would encourage listeners to check it out. But I'll put links to all that, especially Travis's newsletter as well, and check out all the other Orange Cone stuff. Travis, I really appreciate you coming back on the podcast, and I just really, on behalf of the indie comics community, thank you. I think you do a really nice job, and you do a lot for other people. And thanks for coming on and chatting with me for the past hour.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Jimmy.
All right. For Comic Book Yeti, I am in the Cryptid Creator Corner. I'm Jimmy Gasparo. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you next time.
This is Byron O'Neill, one of your hosts of the Cryptid Creator Corner, brought to you by Comic Book Yeti. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of our podcast. Please rate, review, subscribe, all that good stuff. It lets us know how we're doing, and more importantly, how we can improve. Thanks for listening.
If you enjoyed this episode of the Cryptid Creator Corner, maybe you would enjoy our sister podcast, Into the Comics Cave. Listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.